What I think of the Marshall DSL. I have owned a couple of Marshalls in the past. A Plexi reissue 100 watt head, and also an older DSL, maybe the 5 watt one. I didn't like it that much, but the Plexi was great. I had it for 5 or 6 years and got a lot of use out of it. So that's sort of my background of Marshall amps, limited as it is. The DSL, I've borrowed someone's once at a gig, and I thought it was really bright sounding, but it did have a good, like, classic Marshall-y distortion sound. So I wrote a couple of pros and cons. Effects loop, really transparent, it just works as it should. The foot switch works with it well. For the 4 channels, the amp will recall if you had the loop on or off for each individual channel as you switch between them. It will also recall which master volume you have assigned to that channel or sub-channel, because you have the clean and crunch on the classic gain channel, and OD1 and OD2 on ultra gain, basically. So that was cool, and it comes with a foot switch for switching between those settings. Foot switch works great. I like this amp's ability to... There's not many amps that can do a really nice gain and clean, I guess. It's hard, like the speakers are always kind of voiced in the middle, but it does that really kind of sparkly, Fendery, John Frusciante sort of clean tone, but it also does the Marshall grind all the way up to metal. I mean, it's got the little tone shift. I don't really like it, but it makes the EQ more sort of death metal sounding with a really high mid-range. Because the EQ is so powerful, it works really well at low volume, because you can crank up the resonance all the way, and that will give like some fake kind of cab thump. I think it's probably like boosting around 80 or 100 hertz or so. And then the rest of the EQ has a huge range on it, especially like it can go super bright with the presence, as most Marshalls can. Maybe even more so than a lot of the boutique clones. Sometimes they tend to voice them not quite as bright as Marshall do, but it seems to record really well, even though it might sound, it's not as immediately pleasing in the room. It can be a bit like, is that too bright? But then a lot of the time, once it's recorded and in a mix, it just works. I did find that when I cranked it up, really opened it up, like with the drummer and stuff, it was harder the EQ was sort of set weird, because I think it's sort of designed so that it's around the middle, sounds good at low volume, like practice volume. But if you crank it, I found that I had almost no treble and no bass, or barely any presence. Resonance definitely off if it's cranked, and I just used the mids mainly. It was weird. It almost seems like the EQ boosts from 0. It's not like older Marshall settings where you can put everything to 10 and it doesn't sound too crazy when it's cranked up. It almost sounds just like it's letting everything through. Yeah, so it didn't do as well at high volume or gig. Like it'll work, but it doesn't feel like it wants to be at that power output, and it does kind of, I don't know if I smelled like the speaker burning in or whatnot, but it just felt like it might something might break. It didn't seem as comfortable doing that as like a more traditional Marshall. The only other main con was that the emulated out sounds pretty bad. They say it's got like a soft tube cab sim. It just sounds bad, really bad. I will experiment with using the preamp out to take that into cab sims, see how that sounds. Anyway, yeah, it's a good amp. It was about $1,000 Australian. It looks cool. It's versatile. And my only gripe is, but you can't have everything. Like, I guess for the fact that it sounds so good at low volume kind of means that it is a weird amp at high volume. I don't think I've seen an amp before that was awesome at both. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thanks.